Hey everybody, it's Master Gowengeist here, bringing you my review for That 90's Show Part 3 on Netflix. And I was kind of surprised that this popped off, because there wasn't really any warning, and I thought that like most of the rumors had it being coming out in like October or whatnot, so I'm like, so when it popped off, last week, I was like, holy shit! And it was a quick little thing. It was only like 8 episodes, the second half of pretty much what Season 2 would have been, before they decided to go, hey, fuck it, let's just start naming them parts and shit. It's like, alright, whatever you want to do, Netflix. However, I really enjoyed this part. It really had more of a cohesive kind of feel. We got more inner workings for like the plots going on. We had plot progression, character progression, everything gelled here. We got really good stuff from our older That 70's Show characters with Red and Kitty and Donna, and Mitch doing his own shit. But the biggest positive for me is that the younger cast kind of gelled for me. We got pretty interesting content for them to kind of go through. Each one kind of felt more like a character rather than the kind of archetypes that we had seen from the previous That 70's Show. It just really worked very well. And the great thing is that this was all of these episodes were directed by Laura Prepon, who plays Donna, and I think she did a very good job because she was able to get the best out of the older characters and the younger characters as well, while just having everything in a very nice cohesive package. However, the one kind of weird problem is that the episodes kind of sometimes just randomly end to me, where there's like, oh, okay, that's our kind of end point here, where it's like, oh, all right. Other than that, I really liked what we were able to accomplish with this part. So, we've seen that. We start off from the last part. There's a giant hole in the foreman's kitchen, and we have to deal with the fallout of that. Bob is utilizing his one relative to try and do it, but he's Italian and doesn't speak any English. And it's funny because they're trying to figure out who to kind of blame for it. Kitty's like, I'm not going to show you any of my Paris pictures before eventually breaking. He'll be like, no, this is for me. Pretty much latching on to Gwen and Nikki and figuring out what's kind of going on with that. Let's see. And we get that Nate decides to take the fall for that, and then he has his own little kind of story where he's like helping Red rebuild and rebuild the kitchen and everything like that before Red's like, it wasn't you, was it? No, you're doing it to pretty much impress a girl and everything. And it was kind of cool to see that, because Nate kind of got a little bit more into his own. Now, granted, he still has the basic kind of problem of essentially being Kelso number 2 in this scenario, but we understand that he has a great abiding kind of love for Nikki, and we see that pretty much throughout this part as it progresses. We see him attempting to like win her back and then trying to kind of move on from her. Incidentally enough, starting to date Jay Kelso's sister. Let's see. Betsy Kelso. Oh, God. And that gives him at least some interesting stuff, as Betsy pretty much tries to utilize him and turn him into her own kind of thing, going the kind of douche route for him, and Jay being like, don't date my sister. And them actually having an interesting kind of clash of like Nate needing help from Jay, but Jay not really kind of being able to provide that kind of help, but yet still attempting to make the try anyway, but still having that kind of friction and conflict. It didn't feel like a cop-out of one character was acting like a complete and utter giant asshole over the other, but they're just two friends in a situation where it's like, yeah, the one's heartbroken and pretty much gets used as a plaything by the other's sibling. And it's like, god damn. And it's funny because then we start seeing it kind of escalate to where Nate finally kind of gets through his head and gets back with his friendship with Jay. And then he's like, I don't know how the fuck to kind of like get out of this. He tries to break up with Betsy and it doesn't fucking work until eventually she's able to kind of get to her. It's like, why the fuck are you hung up with Nikki? What about me? And then just fucking getting upset about it. Let's see here. Yeah, so that's pretty much Nate's whole big kind of thing. And then, of course, we get some other kind of interesting stuff. We get Leia and Jay's whole thing is pretty much taking their relationship to the next level. Donna popping in and, like, helping her out. Her trying to figure out, like, the whole showerhead masturbation thing, which very much was a nice kind of fusion of, like, Eric's shit going on and Donna's shit as well. Leia kind of starts getting a little bit more into her own and having a better kind of fusion of her two parents here while still feeling like herself. Donna trying to help that out. We see nice kind of things going on with Red and Kitty. Kitty having this whole thing with the vacuum cleaner. Red just kind of going nutty with this, like, fish. And then eventually Kitty getting so many speeding tickets and trying to get Leia to lie for her. It's like, holy fucking shit. Leia eventually getting together with Jay and finding out her fantasy was Doug Funny from the, like, I was like, the cartoon. I'm like, what the fuck? That was an interesting kind of one. I'm like, alright. And we see that Jay is actually kind of taking their relationship seriously. Now, granted, it's always done in a kind of Kelso kind of manner, but it still works out well enough, and it doesn't feel like a complete retread of, like, Michael Kelso. That's what you always kind of want. See, they usually kind of fit the kind of Michael Kelso-isms more onto Nate, whereas Jay does feel like he is the spawn of the primordial Kelso, but he doesn't feel like a carbon copy of Michael, even though he's his son. And then trying to make her whole thing, her whole summer kind of work out before we start seeing kind of more escalation on the overall plot of figuring out her staying in Point Place for the past the summer into the next school year, because Eric has received a job offer to pretty much shadows George Lucas at Skywalker Ranch, writing about the whole prequels being written and everything. It's like, oh, interesting. And that, of course, brings the whole kind of conflict of Donna having to, like, stay there in Point Place and then commute to her job, so that way she can also commute to California to be with Eric as well and be that kind of central kind of place, but also having her friction between her and Kitty just doing her own kind of thing, even though, yes, she's a grandparent and she's got some connection with Leia. Donna's the one that is the parent. You can't just sidestep and, like, go AWOL, give her the kind of backpack you think works out, not telling her about Leia and her friend sneaking out to pretty much do a kind of ritual on the roof. Not a crazy kind of one. They like do shit with, like, cantaloupes and shit like that, and the typical kind of stuff. Not as many circles in this season / part thing, but what we did get was kind of interesting. We did get let me see, Leo's son, and Jay and Silent Bob, pretty much. And it was kind of cool. They didn't, like, break the show or anything. They were just a nice kind of cameo, very similar to the usual kind of That 70s Show cameos. We get Earl popping back up. We get Mitch popping back up. And, like, a men's support group and everything. Mitch pretty much trying to get and hit back on Donna. We see Bob dealing with pretty much finding all of his shit in Gwen's attic, and that had some nice kind of callbacks and everything, and I like that they were able to call back Midge as well. that also then kind of dovetails into Gwen. She has kind of issues with her father, pretty much blowing her off and screwing her mom when he said that he was going to teach her how to drive, and she's like, fuck this shit, and steals his truck to kind of teach her herself. But I do like that they didn't auto-punish her and are just like trying to actually work through their kind of problems. I really like that as a kind of thing. You can't just be like, oh, you're grounded, that's it. Say goodbye to your friends. That doesn't help the matter. I mean, sure, you stole something, there has to be consequences and repercussions. However, if it's in a scenario like this, where you said you were going to do something and you keep not doing it, are you surprised that somebody's going to act out in the way that Gwen did? We also get that Ozzy pretty much has his kind of like Cinderella story. He goes because Jay pretty much wanted to get this kind of wrestling belt signed by Nate's favorite dude to kind of like cheer him up with the whole Nikki situation. And Ozzy finds this dude and makes out with him, and then kind of gets helped by Kitty Foreman into finding him again and having that kind of relationship. Nikki gets the kind of... she gets shafted throughout this one, pretty much. I mean, she gets some interesting kind of one-liners and stuff like that, but it isn't until the end of the part that her parents are like, oh, screw your music and shit, and pretty much pawns off her guitar, and it's like, oh, I just pretty much do whatever my parents tell me. They don't believe in me. And it's like, god damn. But the thing is, it's like an important thing. It's just, it lands at the end and you're like, what the fuck? And we see that Nate gets her guitar back by selling his his van to Fenton. It's like, oh shit. And that of course gets them back together. Which is a pretty grand romantic gesture there because of how much that van means to them. Always a van. Always has to be. That's before we see that the guys pretty much, well, mainly Jay, stole Kitty Foreman's keys because she's a nurse at the school to pretty much get them up there. But of course, we see that Donna knows pretty much all the places in Point Place that people would hang out at this kind of thing, and everybody's in trouble, and that's where the part ends. So I hope that this continues because I really think that they found their groove here. I wish there would be more episodes so that way we get a little bit more for these kind of plot points and getting them kind of fused together, and especially the overarching. But I think this was a very strong part because we got most of our characters to actually have more character development. Understanding of Nikki's love for music and that her parents don't believe in her, and her coming to that realization was like, god damn. I think it sucks that it pretty much had to wait until the end, but we are juggling a very big cast here. We've got the older guard and the newer guard. Now granted, I think they did a better kind of job of being able to balance it out where we had interesting kind of stories with the older guard and them kind of working through certain kind of things, but not overtaking the younger ones, except in the case of pretty much like Nikki. Ozzy gets some good kind of stuff. We see him understanding and trying to figure out how the relationship kind of works, getting into a crisis where he accidentally loses the kind of promise ring. The bigger kind of ones are Nate, Leia, and Jay, getting the most out of it, and Donna to a certain extent, but that kind of links up with Leia and Jay's kind of whole story of keeping them in Point Place and all that. Gwen also got some good decent development to kind of understand what was kind of going on. Very good liners on her own as well, but she still won out more over Nikki. Nikki is at the bottom at the moment, at least for me. But of course, when you have an ensemble, sometimes your objectives go kind of different kind of ways, and I think Leia had to take precedence, so that way we also had to take Jay with his precedence, sorry. They're almost two characters. And of course, when you're doing stuff with Jay, you kind of have to link it up with Nate, so you kind of got this order of why it kind of shakes out that way. I would definitely recommend this now, but I hope that Netflix isn't stupid and it's like, we put enough money into this. I'm doing this review, and I'm like, hey, I'm saying this is really good and I'm glad that you guys are doing this, and I'm almost thinking in the back of my mind, I got this fucking feeling of like, Netflix, we're gonna cancel this fucking shit. I'm just like, no, you finally got into an all cylinders thing kind of going on here. Now, if you don't agree with me, that's quite alright. I understand that we got differences in opinions, and this could be like the worst season ever, or part, or whatever the fuck they want to call it, for you. And I totally get that. Move on. I would say just not go for it. I was actually surprised that they were able to get to this kind of point, at least for me, where I'm like, we got it. But that's the thing. Sometimes you need a couple of seasons to get into the groove of a show. I mean, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that had a really good bit where it kind of almost had a soft reset with everything that happened with Winter Soldier. It's like, wow, that's a kind of rare thing. But other kind of shows, you need a season or two to kind of buck into something and kind of work some kinks out. Because sometimes you get a first season that's really kind of shaky, and then the second season kind of gets some problems shaken out, and then by the third season, you might have some kind of thing when you get all the creative juices lined up and all the people working together, and you get something. That's what's happened here. We need to be able to let shows have that kind of time to work that stuff out. It's very rare that you can get a Game of Thrones season 1 when you're like, wow, okay, this has it. Walking Dead season 1. Okay, shit, fuck. Now those are my examples of like where one season's like, okay, we got some shit here. Let's see where this goes. Supernatural season 1. That 70s show, you know, like, it's kind of rare that you're able to kind of get that together and have that on a first season. And I think that is really exacerbated in the streaming kind of place that we're at now. They're like, it needs to put up some inconceivable metric, or we're going to cancel it. Or they just use it as a certain kind of project, and then it gets to a really good spot, and then they just fucking auto-cancel it. Just for no fucking reason. Sometimes it's just like, why? Like, some things you're like, alright, that I could understand if you cancel and just went, whoa, because it was like $500 million to make a season 1. It's like, what have you done? Why has this occurred? What the fuck, motherfucker? So, I hope that we get more with these characters, because I think, one, the younger cast deserve it, because I want to kind of explore with these characters and see where they kind of go. I would like Jay to kind of like expand himself a little bit from being another kind of dumb Kelso character. I want to see how Jay expands himself from expand himself in being the Kelso character. And I want to see how Leia kind of works out and how she does her things as well. There's a lot of potential here, and I think that this started to kind of realize it. Also, I'm glad that we had Eric given an interesting kind of thing where they could bring him back depending upon what the writers, directors, and everything is able to kind of line up if he wants to come back. I was glad that we kind of saw him anyway, but you know what I mean? Give the option so that way we can have those characters back that add to the story with the younger ones as well, to what we're learning and what we're seeing. The strength of that 70s show was being able to showcase growing up, both from the perspective of the main cast as the main focus, but also as the older cast around them, learning about Red and Leo and Kitty and Bob Pinciotti and all the rest of them, and seeing them kind of understand and grow with the main cast as they are understanding and growing themselves. That is at least what I liked and what I got from that 70s show, what drew me to it. And it's really kind of cool to see Donna be that kind of upstairs person, but still understand how the fuck a downstairs person kind of thinks and operates. So she was able to kind of just pinpoint that shit. It's like, listen, I know you people. And another funny thing, my family had one of those fucking aliens that Leia and Gwen utilized to hide, to make it look like she was still asleep. That was just a great kind of callback. That's the thing. Even though I didn't live in the 70s, it was nice to kind of see that from that 70s show, and then being able to see the kind of things from that 90s show, even though I was like a lot younger than these guys at this point, and wasn't like living through the kind of teen years at this point. It's cool to see the kind of callbacks and understand what's kind of going on here for them. It's that growing up thing and that understanding thing, and I think it's a universal kind of thing that you can get into. Like, even though you've got young, like, everybody's doing their fucking old man shakes fists, young kids these days, it might not be the thing that you had in your mind or what you grew up with, but they're doing the same things you did. Granted, maybe in different kind of ways with different kind of tech and different kind of stories, but it's all the same basic mythology. It's all the same basic things kind of going on. And how you do it, how you do that kind of turn, how you present it, how you put your little flair on it, your own flavor, that's the magic. And I think they got it, or at least the beginnings of it, here in this part. And I hope they allow that to go, because that's what I always love to see. Whenever I see something and I'm more kind of like disappointed, it's mainly within the fact of they're doing something that was either popular and they just fucking copy it. They don't put their own spin on it. They don't put their own flavor on it. It's just, hey, looter shooters, yeah. Let's copy Borderlands. The Dick Thrower 55, baby. Does 55 million damage. Alright. What are you doing with it? How am I getting it? There's a lot of stuff that you can do with it. That seemed kind of random, I know, but it kind of links to it because you see it in games, you see it in movies, you see it in books and everything, where these fucking people are like, hey, you got this kind of creative stuff, just copy that shit and take that person's homework, copy it, change it up a little and move on. It's like, no. There's good stuff here. There's stuff that you could do that does true proper homage to it, but gives you a different kind of take on it. And I think I would like them to be able to continue this, because we see a lot of that cool stuff. A really kind of cool thing was that Kitty had her license suspended, and then we saw them doing the Vista Cruiser, except it was a nice kind of callback. It didn't, because there's member berries and Easter eggs where it's just like, oh shit. I do like that they did a different kind of intro for the That 90s show, but it was really awesome to see that we had a plot pertinent moment where Kitty couldn't drive, so we have everybody doing the old intro that we saw in That 70s show with the Vista Cruiser, everybody in the Vista Cruiser car changing around, singing the song, and it was really well done and well executed. It's not just copying the homework, it's understanding what makes this special and being able to execute it in a very good way. That's all I really care about, and I'm glad that we were able to see here. So I hope they continue this on, and I look forward to seeing more of this. I hope that they keep Lara Prepon as the director, because I really like this. Now granted, she's got other stuff. That's cool. I hope they're able to find someone else to do this and really hones in with this. So those are my opinions on the part. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.